Tom, not sure where you want to start today, although I will tell you that this story about NDP House Leader Peter Julian saying that dysfunction in the House of Commons will be a factor in future confidence votes, I have no idea what that means.
It doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot.
Oh,
I
that's
think
good.
it's a threat on the part of the NDP to keep looking at the Conservatives, to keep the Liberals there by voting with them and not getting on board with the Conservatives, because I know Peter Julian. He was my House Leader too. He's a very, very great guy, and he doesn't put up with this sort of nonsense for very long. Look, here's the breakdown in the House right now. The Liberals set up an organization within the government a couple of years back to hand out taxpayers about $1 billion worth was scheduled. Not all of it got out the door, to support new energy projects, things that are new technologies, things like that. It turned into a total gong show. It was a scam. There was money flowing out the door going to projects. The Auditor General has, I think, probably never quite sent out a report like it. It was just like, what is this beast? Okay, they're giving out money. They're not even respecting their own rules. What's going on here? So the Conservatives and the other parties got together just at the end of the spring session in June and made a resolution in the House, got a motion adopted that said this: you're going to hand over all of that documentation to the RCMP. Now, the RCMP has basically said in the meantime, well, we don't need this stuff. We're doing our own work right now, and they've just confirmed today that they're doing their own investigation as to whether or not there was criminal activity. That's supposedly why the Conservatives are using every trick in the book to shut down the House. But it has become absolutely unruly. No work is getting done in the House of Commons. Now, there's only one reason that the Conservatives are doing this. They want an election. And they figure that if they shut the place down, the Liberals will have no choice but to call an election. But the NDP is just essentially warning, we're going to do anything but. If you think we're going to be on your side for this madness as an excuse to go to Canadians in an election, forget about it. And I think that that's where Peter Julian was hanging his hat, Aaron, on that thing.
I noticed that he used the words chaos, right? And I thought to myself, well, of course, those are the bad guys from Get Smart, but this is a different kind of chaos, I guess. Look,
you're so erudite. Of course, that's exactly what he was thinking.
Don Adams was, in fact, a major star. Listen, I don't understand. I think I brought this up earlier in the week with a couple of our analysts. This whole idea of the Bloc pushing, now setting that line in the sand, October 29th. I mean, at the end of the day, and I don't want to necessarily bring up the proroguing issue because I know you believe that's the next step in this,
Yep.
But October 29th comes and goes. What changes?
Well, not a whole heck of a lot, given what we just said, because it requires all three major opposition parties to the government. So the Liberals remain in power as long as the Conservatives are not able to convince both the NDP and the Bloc Québécois to bring down the government. Because, to put it another way, both the Bloc and the NDP have more than enough votes to keep the Liberals in power. And so that's the thing that we're looking at right now. I actually believe that that's what's going to continue to happen. If you look at one thing and one thing only, is that the fact that the Conservatives have tens of millions of dollars of spare change to run the next election. The Liberals have millions and millions of dollars, not nearly as much as the Conservatives, but more than enough for a full election campaign. And the NDP has a few $100,000. And they just can't go to an election right now without knowing that they're going to lose a bunch of their seats. So they can say, oh, no, we had a recent poll that showed that in English Canada, we're actually doing better than the Liberals, which is true. There was one poll saying that. But I don't think it's going to be enough to convince Jagmeet Singh to pull the plug on the current government, because he could wind up being the big loser.
So best guess, spring election?
At this stage of the game, yeah, probably on something around the budget. But we always forget that it takes nothing more than Justin Trudeau walking across the lawn from Rideau Cottage, which is his official residence, over to Rideau Hall, which is Mary Simon's official residence. Knock, knock, knock. Give me an election writ. And you know what? There's an election on right away. Trudeau doesn't have to wait to be beaten. I know Trudeau a fair bit as well, and I do know his temperament and his character. Yes, I do believe that there's going to be a prorogation, that Trudeau will step down, that the person who will probably replace him would be Mark Carney. That's the scenario I'm working with, because that's the one that most of the people that I know at the highest level in Ottawa are working with right now. But nobody forgets, because every time you push them on it, saying, are you sure this is what's going to happen? Their answer is always, Trudeau is Trudeau. And that means that he's keeping the door open. And he could very well decide to go for what we call a snap election, an early election. He just walks in, asks for it, and he's the one who gets to decide the date, and he would stick around in that case.
So you brought up Mark Carney. You believe he would be the odds-on favorite to be the leader. And now, of course, and I find this fascinating, right? The Conservatives want an investigation into something he hasn't been even accused of or charged with, but they want an investigation nonetheless. What's that about?
They've been calling for that since August. So this started with Poilievre himself railing against Mark Carney, who was calling carbon tax Carney. So they've got this guy in their rearview mirror. And the reason that they're worried about him is he's not Justin Trudeau. And what I mean by that is nothing personal about Justin Trudeau. I'm just talking about politics right now. The polling is so consistent, Aaron, across Canada. Mr. Trudeau does not have a chance. He personally would see the Liberals get wiped out, and he would bear the responsibility for the election of a Pierre Poilievre Conservative government. That's pretty scary for anybody who knows what his politics and his policies are about. But, Trudeau, again, has just been steadfast saying, I'm sticking around. I'm going to be the one doing this. So I think that's the key question right now. What's actually going to happen? Who replaces him eventually? I think Carney's the inside favorite. I think that Carney's the only one who's not bearing the brunt of all of the bad decisions of the Trudeau government. What's Trudeau's strength? His strength is social policy, everything from the dental plan to the child care to, new pharmacare. That's his type of stuff. Spending public money, getting new programs in place. What are the Conservatives about? Cutting those programs. That's what they want to do, and trying to balance the budget. This is what the odds-on betting is with regard to Poilievre's game plan, although he won't reveal much of it. And that's the thing that we're looking at right now. We're saying, okay, where is this thing going? Trudeau's biggest weakness, the economy. Mark Carney's greatest strength, the economy. What does Poilievre try to talk about? The economy. Does his stuff hold together? Absolutely not. And Trudeau will not win a battle with Poilievre on the economy. He's already won it. Trudeau's lost the young vote to Poilievre because the young people are saying, hey, we're worse off than our parents and grandparents. We're not voting for this Trudeau guy anymore. He fooled us 3 times. We're not voting for him anymore. All the polling shows that Poilievre has got those young people now. And now, because of a clever move by the Bloc on this question of increasing old age security, Trudeau's losing the seniors' vote as well. So the only person who's going to be able to break that, I believe, is Carney. I think that anybody like Chrystia Freeland, great, administrator, by the way, a good manager, but not a very good politician. I don't think she'd have a chance against Poilievre. It would actually be worse for them than with Trudeau.
So my dark horse candidate, Tom, you ready?
Yes.
Mark Holland.
Holland is a very serious guy, and his French is not bad. Probably not quite as good as Carney's, but not bad. He'd be able to bluff his way through a debate, but he doesn't have the depth, of field. But he's really a strong candidate. I think he would run as well. I think that's really good insight on your part, Aaron. I think that not a lot of people have him on their bingo card, but I think he'd win.
It's actually very little insight, Tom. I saw him yelling in the House of Commons, and I thought, holy cow, who is this guy? Because he could probably take on Poilievre direct, like one-on-one.
He's been doing it. He's been doing it regularly and standing up and slugging away. He'd win. He'd certainly beat any other candidate. I think you're onto something. Any other candidate from the existing cabinet. But I don't think he'd have a chance against Carney, who really is being backed by people at the highest level within the Liberal Party, saying if we want to have the slightest chance of changing our fate in this election, we've got to go with this Mark Carney guy.
All right. Tom, last thing real quick. Francois Legault in France spouting off again about immigration, even though, and you make an interesting point here, right? He knows what he's saying. This idea of forcibly removing these people or getting Canada to forcibly remove them is in fact violating the Constitution. He doesn't care.
Oh, sure. He knows that, but he's playing the dirtiest politics. He knows that there's a certain percentage of the population that has bad feelings towards immigrants. They can be convinced that immigrants are responsible for lots of problems, and that's the card that he's playing. And at the same time, he's taking a swipe at Trudeau because he is on the public record in the past couple of weeks as saying the ballot question in the upcoming federal election, whenever it takes place, should be immigration. So he's trying to tee this up to help the Conservatives of Poilievre. The same way he told Quebecers to vote Conservative under Aaron O'Toole, he's trying to set up the same thing, Aaron, with Poilievre. And I don't think it works. This father knows best stuff, this incredibly, this tendency that he has to believe that he can tell Quebecer stuff when he's at 20% in the polls. I think he's in for the same surprise he was in for when O'Toole got knocked out,
Tom, I thank you. I appreciate it. You have a great weekend.
Take good care. Yes.
You too.